In part 5 of this series, we'll create a box that the player can push to reach the end, and a flag with a trigger to detect an end state. So to make our box, we're just going to start off by grabbing the crate model and dragging that in. And now, what the thing is that if we simply just add a box collider with a rigid body and try and slide this box along the ground, what's going to happen is that between these blocks here are these joints. Now, we've snapped them so that they are the exact same height, and it should be perfectly smooth. But the problem with the Unity physics engine is that to a physics engine, that is not perfectly smooth. And what will happen is that every now and then, as you slide the box from one block to the other, the edge of the box will sometimes actually get caught on this seam here, on the joint between the blocks. So we're going to have to do something just a tiny bit more, a little bit complicated, not too complicated, but it's just not going to be as simple as just putting a box collider on. So we'll start off by adding the box collider, and we're going to add a rigid body. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do like a little bit of a trick to make this box slide smoothly on the ground without any issues. And what that trick is to actually add, and I'm just going into orthographic view. The trick is to actually add a sphere collider. Like this. If I just hide this mesh renderer, you can see now we have a sphere inside the cube. But the thing is that what we need is for the bottom of the sphere to be protruding from the box. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the size in the Y size of the box, say 0.4, we could say 0.45. And then the center position will be something like 0.27. So what I've done is I've basically made the box collider a little bit shorter so that the bottom of the sphere is actually protruding. And but the sphere collider does line up with the bottom of the box model. So as we slide our box along the ground, it's not going to get snagged on any joints because we have a rounded bottom. Now, to stop our box from wobbling and all over the place, because we don't have a flat bottom, what we're going to do is we're actually going to, under our rigid body, we're going to go to constraints, and we're going to freeze all rotation, meaning that our rigid body will not be able to rotate from physics. You can hit File Save. Remember to always save whenever you make changes. Control S. It doesn't save by itself, so that's an important thing to do. Oh, and also something to note is our crate is the height of a half block, which is what we want. Let's also create a prefab with this crate. So now we can create as many crates as we want. So let's just pop this box, you know, I don't know, somewhere like here. So the player comes down, pushes it that way, and then pushes it into this area here. And what we can also do, just to prevent the player from accidentally pushing the box off the edge, is we can actually just go ahead and make a little wall here. Cool. So something you'll notice is that once we start pushing this box, it's going to be a little bit hard. Now it's hard to tell, but if you actually select the player, you'll notice our player is actually slipping on the spot when we try to push it, which means our ball is not getting enough traction. So we could increase the friction of our player physics material, but something I want to do is I actually want to increase our gravity, because I like things to fall faster in these sorts of games, just because it's just a bit more satisfying, a bit more cartoony, and the way we do that is to increase the gravity. So by increasing the gravity, we're also going to increase the amount of friction that we're producing, which is going to give us more traction, which is going to mean that any power that we're pushing into our sphere, into our player, is going to deliver more power moving forward. So we go to Edit, Project Settings, Physics. The default is 9.81. I'm going to change that to -20. And to compensate for that increase in gravity, I'm going to increase my speed, or my power, the amount of power I'm putting into it, to 500. And if it feels a bit too fast, you can always reduce the max angular velocity. You know, you can increase the angular drag. You know, if you want to, you could bring that to 40. That feels a lot better. And you can see we can still get up things fine. Get up these ramps. You know, I might make the max angular velocity up to 8. That will let us go a little bit faster. There we go. I'm quite happy with that. Now we can push our crate nicely into place, like that. Now, if we try and get across, we can't really do that quite yet. Because our block is only half, what that means is that we got this big gap here. So I want to keep the block small, just so that it's easy to maneuver. It's not too big or anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this block about here, where I would want it ideally. And I'm going to take this top. I'm just going to press duplicate, Control D, and I'm just going to move this. Make another one. I'm just going to move it across to about here. I mean, if you want to, you can make the leaves line up with the other leaves. In fact, you could probably vertex snap that. Yep, to the other leaf. So it's all seamless. And now you've got a gap that is going to allow us to get across. So if I move our box here, we can even vertex snap it up here. Oh wait, sorry. I think it was supposed to be according to the design here. There we go. Cool. So now if we try this out. Can push it all the way to the end. And then bam, we get across. Now what we need is an end condition. Looking at these assets we have, I think a flag is a good way to represent that. Let's take our flag object. Let's pop it in there. Might even rotate it like that. And oh. Rotate that properly. There we go. Pop that in there. Something that's also useful is the hotkeys to actually access these are Q, W, E, R, T, Y. So Q is the hand, W is the move tool, E is for rotation, R is for scale, and then so on and so forth. So rather than going back and clicking every time, you can just, you know, the main ones are W, E, R. If you want to change these, you know, do that, move it, do that, scale it, whatever. It's just a faster way of working. If you want to go up there and click it, that's fine, or you can use the hotkeys, but I'm going to be using the hotkeys from now on. Quite happy where that is. So for our flag, we're going to add a box collider to it. And just trying to remember, did we? No, that's fine. For our flag, we got a box collider here. So we're going to turn this box collider into a trigger, so that the player can actually pass through it. And I'm just going to just look from above, and let's just make the size like that, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1. That's 0.5. There we go. Let's make it maybe 0.4 by 0.4 as the trigger zone. That looks pretty good. And if you want to, you can also add another box collider and set the center 0.5, 0.5, 0.1, and 0.1, like this. And you can leave that as not a trigger. And all that means is that the player will be able to pass through this box collider, which we're using as a trigger, but we've got another box collider that is not a trigger, which will stop the player from actually passing through the post. Like that. So let's take our flag and put that into our prefabs. Let's just clean this up a little bit. Grab all these blocks. Put that all in there. Okay, cool. Awesome. So we have a flag. And what we'll need to do is write some code which will detect whether the player has gone inside this trigger. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a tag to this game object. I'm going to call it flag. So hit the plus there, flag, and then select the flag. Tags are really good for knowing what objects you are colliding or triggering with, but you can also use tags for other things as well. Going into our player script, here, player controller, we are going to type in here on trigger enter. And since it's a Unity method, we'll be getting rid of this private. It's still private by default, but it just helps us differentiate it. So on trigger enter, this method will be called whenever this object enters a trigger, essentially. So anything you write in there will be called. What we want to do is we want to start with an if statement. If, I'm just hitting tab twice. If other, which is, this is the collider other. If other dot tag equals flag, then for now let's just debug log, and let's just say end and save that. So now with our console window open, when we run into the flag, bam, that's the end. So you know, you can make different things happen. When you end, you could reload the level, start again. You could load a different level if you have multiple levels. You know, you can choose what you want to do, or you could maybe just make some text pop up that says congratulations, all that kind of thing. I think the next thing to do, which is kind of following the same kind of steps that we did for the flag. Oh, and also since we added that tag to the flag, we can actually grab our flag and overwrite our prefab. Something we have to do is that when the ball falls off the map, I think that needs to count as a death. Otherwise the player will just be stuck off the map. Let's start off by creating a kill zone. So let's grab a cube, set it to 0, 0, 0, and set the scale to 100 by 100. And let's move it down a bit where we want the kill zone to be, maybe about here. And let's set that to trigger. And let's get rid of that mesh renderer. We don't need to see that. let's just call that kill zone. Okay, and we'll give it a tag, add tag plus kill zone. Save. Great, and then apply that tag here, kill zone. Let's this plane that we put here to help us place objects. Right now that's stopping the ball from falling. So we'll just tick this to disable that object for now, while we're not doing any level building. And we're going to go back to our script, and we're just going to copy the same code we wrote here, and we're going to say if other.tag equals kill zone. Now this is where we're going to create a method, because we're going to be, rather than, and just as an example, so rather than every time we die, every time we fall off or run into an obstacle or want to restart the level, anything like that, rather than having to call the same line of code, we can create a method. So as an example, here I'll just write down the line of code. So when we fall off the map and hit the kill zone, we want to just reset the level. Okay, so you want to type scene manager and go show potential fixes using Unity engine.scene management, and that'll pop that up here for you. You can type that up yourself if you need to. And there you go, scene manager dot load scene. That's a method. And we want to load the current scene, so we go back to scene manager dot get active scene, which is get the current scene. Oh, but load scene actually takes a string, so we need to get the name dot name. Great. So we are loading the scene, passing in the name of the scene, and this is getting the current scene and then getting the name of the current scene. So every time we hit the kill zone, the level should reset. Now, this is that thing about methods, is that every single part of the code where the player dies and we want to reset the scene, we would have to write out this whole line of code. We won't make another method for now, but later on we'll see when we need to write this piece of code again, we can just have one method and put that in a method and then call that method from wherever we want. So we'll just keep it like that for now and hit play. And now if we fall off the map, it should reset the level. Boop, and we're back. And I can just keep going and going. So another little handy tool, I think, would be for the player to be able to reset the level whenever they want. If they get stuck, you know, let's say, for example, I'm playing this level, and what happens if I do this? Okay, now it's impossible for me to complete this level. So we want the player to be able to quickly restart the level. In the update, we can say if input dot get key down, and let's say R, we want the R key. Now here we would have to once again take this line of code and paste it in there. But instead what we can do is down here we can create our own method. So we can say private void void meaning that the method doesn't return anything. And we can call this reset level. And it doesn't take any parameters. And then what we can do is we can take this, cut it out, and pop it in here. And so now, whenever we want to reset the level, we just call this method here and here. And there'll be many more other conditions where we'll have to reset the level. So now if we go back and play, if I hit R, let's say I move over here, and I hit R, back I go. Or if I fall off, back I go. Cool. This in itself could be considered a game complete. There's a lot you could do just with this, playing with different levels and the heights of different blocks and different cubes and blocks and all sorts of things.